Snow had been falling for hours by the time Evelyn Lorraine arrived at the house. Not the soft, romantic kind people imagined when they spoke about winter in Europe, but a heavy, endless snowfall that buried roads, swallowed sound, and made the entire world feel abandoned by God. Her car crawled slowly through the forest road, headlights cutting weak tunnels through the white darkness. Pine trees loomed on either side like silent cathedral pillars, their branches bending beneath the storm. Evelyn tightened both hands around the steering wheel. The heater hummed softly. Classical piano played low through the speakers. And still, despite the warmth inside the car, she could not stop shivering. She had always hated snow after the accident, especially at night. Especially roads like this one. Empty roads. The kind where one mistake could erase an entire life in seconds. Her eyes drifted briefly toward the passenger seat. Empty. Of course it was empty. It had been empty for 8 years. Evelyn swallowed hard and forced her attention back toward the road ahead. Then, she saw the house. Black Pine House emerged slowly through the snowfall, like something rising from memory rather than reality. Tall, dark, elegant in the way old European homes often were, carrying beauty and sadness in equal measure. Warm yellow lights glowed faintly behind the windows. The listing photos online had not captured how lonely the place felt. It stood completely isolated in the middle of the woods, surrounded by black pine trees and untouched snow, stretching endlessly in every direction. No neighboring homes, no passing cars, no signs of life. Perfect. That was exactly why Evelyn had rented it. For the past 3 years, she had developed a strange habit she never admitted to anyone. She rented empty houses. Not hotels, not resorts, homes. Real homes filled with traces of strangers. She would stay for a few nights, sometimes a week, wandering quietly through unfamiliar kitchens and living rooms, touching books left on shelves, studying family photographs, opening closets, just to smell old perfume trapped inside coats. Sometimes she cooked meals she never ate. Sometimes she sat in children's bedrooms for hours. It wasn't theft. It wasn't vandalism. She simply wanted to feel surrounded by lives that still had meaning. Empty houses still remembered their people. And Evelyn preferred memories to reality. Reality was cold hospital lights. Reality was funerals. Reality was silence in the back seat of a car where laughter used to live. The tires crunched softly over snow as she pulled into the driveway. For a long moment, she stayed inside the vehicle staring at the house. The storm blurred everything beyond the windshield. It almost looked like the house itself was floating in white fog. Finally, Evelyn stepped out into the freezing night. Wind immediately clawed through her coat. Snowflakes melted against her dark hair as she retrieved her suitcase from the trunk. The porch light flickered once above her. The old wood creaked beneath her boots, and then she noticed the note taped beside the front door keybox. "Welcome, Evelyn. Please do not enter the upstairs nursery. Thank you." No explanation. No smiley face. No friendly tone from the owner. Just that. Evelyn stared at the word nursery longer than she should have. A strange ache moved through her chest. Without realizing it, her fingers tightened around the paper until it crumpled slightly. Then she unlocked the door. Warm air greeted her instantly. The inside of the house smelled faintly of cedarwood dust, and something floral lingering deep beneath it all. Old perfume, perhaps. The living room was beautiful. A stone fireplace stretched nearly to the ceiling. Antique lamps cast soft golden light across dark hardwood floors. Bookshelves lined the walls beside large windows overlooking the forest. Someone had decorated the house carefully once, lovingly, but now the place felt paused, like a song interrupted halfway through. Evelyn slowly removed her gloves. The silence inside the house felt heavier than the silence outside. Not peaceful silence, watching silence. She moved deeper into the home. The kitchen remained spotless, almost unnaturally clean. Copper pans hung above the island. A small vase containing dried flowers sat near the sink. But what unsettled her most were the photographs. Every framed family photo in the house had been turned face down. Every single one. Evelyn stopped near the fireplace. A cold sensation crept slowly up her spine. "Strange," she whispered. Her own voice sounded unwelcome there. She reached down and carefully lifted one frame upright. A family stared back at her. A man, a woman, and a little blonde girl smiling between them. The child could not have been older than 6. Evelyn's breath caught slightly. For one impossible second, she saw Camille instead. Same pale hair, same small hands, Same soft smile. The grief arrived instantly, the way it always did. Sudden and merciless. 8 years had passed, yet sorrow still lived inside her, like winter trapped beneath ice. Evelyn quickly set the photograph back down, face first. She could not look at it anymore. Upstairs, something creaked. Evelyn froze. The sound had been small, just a single floorboard. But in a house this silent, it felt deafening. She looked slowly toward the staircase near the hallway. Darkness waited above. The nursery. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. Ridiculous, she told herself. Old houses made noise. Wind shifted wood. Pipes groaned. Still, she found herself staring upward longer than necessary. Then another sound came. Soft. Metallic. Like something gently rocking. Evelyn forced herself to look away. Instead, she unpacked slowly in the downstairs bedroom she had chosen for herself. She lit candles, opened a bottle of wine, tried reading for a while beside the fireplace. But the house refused to relax around her. Every room carried the strange sensation of being recently abandoned, as though the owners had left in a hurry and intended to return any minute. At around midnight, the storm worsened. Snow battered the windows. The forest outside disappeared completely beneath darkness. Evelyn sat alone on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her legs, staring into the fire, while shadows shifted softly across the ceiling. That was when she noticed the baby monitor. It sat on a side table near the staircase. White. Old-fashioned. Its small green light glowing steadily. Evelyn frowned. She was almost certain it had not been there earlier. Slowly she reached toward it. Static whispered faintly through the speaker. Then came a sound. A tiny breath. Evelyn's hand stopped. The static crackled again, and a little girl's voice whispered "Mommy." Every muscle in Evelyn's body locked instantly. The voice had been soft, weak, but unmistakably real. Evelyn stared at the monitor in horror. The green light blinked once. Static filled the room again. Then silence. "No," Evelyn whispered shakily. She grabbed the monitor with trembling fingers. "Hello?" Nothing answered. Her pulse hammered violently beneath her ribs. She stood and looked slowly toward the staircase. Darkness waited above like an open mouth. The nursery. The owner's warning suddenly felt less strange now. "Please do not enter the upstairs nursery." Evelyn laughed nervously at herself. This is ridiculous. Perhaps the monitor was connected to another nearby house somehow. Perhaps old batteries caused interference. Perhaps... The voice came again. Closer this time. "Mommy!" Evelyn nearly dropped the monitor. And then very softly, she heard something upstairs. Tiny footsteps, running across the hallway. Her face drained of color. No. The footsteps stopped directly above her. Then came the sound of something slowly creaking. Back and forth. Back and forth. A rocking chair. Evelyn could feel her breathing becoming shallow. The house suddenly seemed colder. Much colder. The fire behind her crackled violently. The monitor hissed with static. And deep beneath all of it, another sound emerged. A child humming softly upstairs. A lullaby. Evelyn knew that melody. French. Camille's favorite bedtime song. Her knees nearly gave out beneath her. "That's impossible," she whispered. Tears burned instantly behind her eyes. No one here should know that song. No one. The humming stopped abruptly. Silence swallowed the house once more. Then from the darkness above came a long, slow creak. Evelyn looked up. At the top of the staircase, barely visible in the shadows, the nursery door was opening by itself. The room upstairs. Evelyn did not remember climbing the stairs. Later, when she tried to recall that moment, her memory became fragmented and dreamlike, as though the house itself had reached into her mind and erased the spaces between one heartbeat and the next. One moment she stood frozen beside the fireplace, staring at the nursery door, slowly opening upstairs. The next, she was halfway up the staircase with the baby monitor still clutched tightly in her trembling hand. The house creaked softly around her. Wind hissed against the windows. The lullaby had stopped, but Evelyn could still feel it lingering somewhere inside the walls woven into the silence like a thread beneath skin. Her breathing echoed loudly in the narrow hallway upstairs. The nursery door remained half open. Darkness waited beyond it. She stopped several feet away. A strange pressure filled the air there. Not threatening exactly. Worse than threatening. Familiar. The scent reached her first. Baby powder, dust, and faintly beneath it all, lavender soap. Camille's soap. Evelyn shut her eyes instantly. "No," she whispered. Her voice cracked. That smell had disappeared from the world 8 years ago. The nursery door moved slightly on its hinges. Creak, slowly, patiently, like the room itself was breathing. Evelyn forced herself forward. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet as she pushed the door open wider. The nursery looked untouched by time. Moonlight filtered through thin curtains, casting pale silver across faded wallpaper decorated with painted suns and tiny clouds. Dust floated lazily through the cold air. Against the far wall stood an old wooden crib, and beside it, a rocking chair, still moving. Back and forth, back and forth. Evelyn felt every hair rise along her arms. The chair could not have been moving on its own. There was no open window, no draft, nothing. Yet the chair continued its slow rhythm, as though someone invisible had stood up only seconds earlier. The baby monitor crackled in her hand. Static filled the room. Then came the tiny sound of breathing again. Evelyn turned slowly toward the dresser beneath the window. Photographs sat there. Unlike the pictures downstairs, these had not been turned over. She approached carefully. The first photograph showed the little blonde girl she had seen earlier. 6 years old, perhaps. Bright eyes, a gap-toothed smile. The next photograph showed the girl sitting beside a woman with dark hair and tired eyes. The mother looked beautiful once, but there was sadness in her face already. The kind of sadness Evelyn recognized immediately. The sadness of someone trying desperately to survive grief before grief had even fully arrived. The final photograph made Evelyn's stomach tighten. It showed the child standing here, in this exact nursery, beside the rocking chair, and scratched faintly across the glass with something sharp were the words "She hates being alone." Evelyn stepped backward instinctively. Her elbow brushed against the crib. It moved slightly. Creak. And from inside the crib came the sound of something soft shifting beneath blankets. Evelyn froze completely. Her heartbeat thundered painfully inside her chest. Slowly, very slowly, she looked down into the crib. Nothing. Only old blankets covered in dust. She exhaled shakily. Then the baby monitor hissed. A little girl whispered "Mommy." This time the voice came from directly behind her. Evelyn spun around violently. The nursery stood empty, but the rocking chair had stopped moving. Complete silence swallowed the room. Evelyn backed toward the doorway, unable to look away from the chair. And that was when she noticed the writing on the wall. Faint, almost hidden beneath peeling wallpaper beside the closet door. Childlike handwriting, repeated over and over again. "Mommy stayed. Mommy stayed. Mommy stayed." Evelyn fled the room. She practically stumbled down the stairs, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Back downstairs, she locked herself in the kitchen and poured wine into a shaking glass until it overflowed onto the counter. "This is stress," she whispered aloud. "That's all this is." Her own reflection stared back at her from the dark kitchen window. Older now. Thinner. Haunted. For a brief moment, she barely recognized herself. The snowstorm outside worsened through the night. Wind battered the house relentlessly. Branches scraped against the roof like fingernails. Every shadow seemed alive in the flickering candlelight. Evelyn tried to sleep around 3 in the morning. She failed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Camille standing in snow beside the crushed remains of twisted metal. Camille laughing in the back seat. Camille singing softly during rainstorms. Camille reaching toward her just before the headlights appeared through the blizzard 8 years ago. Evelyn opened her eyes sharply. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. The worst part of grief was not pain. Pain at least proved love had existed. No, the worst part was forgetting. Forgetting the exact sound of a voice, the exact warmth of small hands, the exact shade of someone's eyes in sunlight. Memory decayed slowly over time, and Evelyn hated herself for allowing it. That was why she rented houses, because empty homes still carried echoes. Families left pieces of themselves behind. Laughter trapped in walls, perfume trapped in curtains, love trapped in objects no one touched anymore. In those borrowed homes, Evelyn could pretend life still existed somewhere untouched by death. The baby monitor suddenly crackled loudly from the living room. Evelyn nearly dropped her wine glass. Static exploded through the speaker. Then came laughter, a little girl laughing softly. Not evil laughter, happy laughter. Camille used to laugh like that. Evelyn stood immediately. No! The monitor continued crackling. Footsteps pounded upstairs, tiny feet running quickly down the hallway. Evelyn grabbed the monitor and looked at its small screen. Snowy static flickered there. Then, the image sharpened suddenly. The nursery appeared. Dark. Empty. The rocking chair moving slowly again. Back and forth. Back and forth. Evelyn stared in horror. Something moved near the closet. A small figure, too blurry to see clearly. Child-sized, standing motionless in the corner. The screen glitched violently, and suddenly the figure was closer, now standing beside the crib, long pale hair hanging over its face. Evelyn stopped breathing. The child lifted one arm slowly and pointed toward the camera. The monitor emitted a piercing burst of static before the screen went black completely. At that exact moment, something slammed upstairs. A door, hard enough to shake the ceiling. Evelyn screamed. Silence followed immediately after. Then came a sound from above that nearly stopped her heart entirely. Someone humming, French. The same lullaby Camille used to sing when she was afraid of storms. Evelyn covered her mouth with trembling hands. That's impossible. The humming drifted slowly across the ceiling above her, moving, as though someone upstairs was walking through the hallway while singing quietly to themselves. Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. Part of her wanted to run, to leave immediately, to drive through the storm and never look back. But another part of her, the wounded, broken part that had spent years chasing ghosts through empty homes, wanted desperately to hear that song again, even if it destroyed her. The humming stopped directly above the kitchen. Then came 3 soft knocks from the ceiling overhead. Knock, knock, knock. Evelyn stared upward in terror. A tiny voice whispered through the baby monitor, "Mommy." The lights flickered once, twice. Then all at once, every light in the house went out. Darkness swallowed Black Pine House completely. Evelyn stood frozen inside it, breathing hard. Snow hissed outside. The baby monitor glowed faint green in her hands. And somewhere upstairs, a child began crying softly. Not angry crying, lonely crying. The sound broke something inside Evelyn instantly. Before she could stop herself, she whispered into the darkness, "Camille." The crying stopped. For one terrible moment, the entire house became silent. Then the baby monitor answered her. Not with static, not with distortion. With a little girl's voice so clear it felt impossible. "Mama." Evelyn collapsed to her knees. Tears streamed freely down her face now. The voice was perfect. Exactly as she remembered. Exactly. Then another sound came from upstairs. A slow creaking footstep. Adult footsteps this time. Heavy, dragging slightly, moving toward the staircase. Evelyn lifted her eyes slowly toward the darkness above. And there, at the top of the stairs, stood a woman. Tall, thin, wearing a pale nightgown, her face hidden behind strands of dark hair, completely motionless. The baby monitor crackled one final time, and the little girl whispered softly, "Mommy, someone is under my bed." The child in the house. The woman at the top of the staircase did not move. Neither did Evelyn. For several long seconds, the only sound inside Black Pine House was the storm outside and the weak hiss of static from the baby monitor trembling in Evelyn's hands. The pale figure stood motionless beneath the darkness upstairs. Tall, thin, one hand hanging unnaturally low beside her body. Strands of dark hair covered most of her face, but Evelyn could still feel the woman staring directly at her. The air inside the house had become painfully cold. Not winter cold, not natural cold, the kind of cold that belonged in hospitals after midnight, the kind that settled over skin moments before terrible news arrived. Evelyn slowly stepped backward. The woman took one step down the staircase. Creak. The old wood groaned beneath her bare foot. The baby monitor crackled violently. Then the little girl whispered again, "Mommy, she's under my bed." The woman stopped moving. Evelyn could barely breathe now. Every instinct told her to run, but grief was a strange disease. It hollowed people out until fear no longer functioned correctly. And somewhere beneath the terror consuming her, another feeling remained stronger. Hope. Awful, desperate hope, because the voice on the monitor had sounded exactly like Camille. Exactly. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Who are you?" she whispered, toward the woman upstairs. No answer. The figure remained still for another moment before slowly turning her head toward the hallway behind her, as though listening to something deeper inside the house. Then, she disappeared into the darkness upstairs. Not quickly, not suddenly. She simply stepped backward into shadow until nothing remained. The baby monitor went silent. Evelyn stood frozen in the kitchen for nearly a full minute before finally moving. She should leave. Any sane person would have left hours ago. But sanity had abandoned Evelyn long before she arrived here. It had left 8 winters earlier, on a frozen road buried beneath snow and shattered glass. Slowly, she climbed the stairs again. The nursery door remained open. The hallway beyond looked darker now somehow, as though the shadows had thickened while she stood downstairs. Evelyn reached the top step and paused. The house creaked softly around her. Somewhere inside the walls, pipes groaned like distant voices. And faintly, very faintly, she heard a child humming again. French. The same lullaby Camille used to sing when thunderstorms frightened her. Evelyn followed the sound toward the nursery. The room looked unchanged at first glance. Moonlight spilled across the floorboards. The rocking chair sat still beside the crib. Dust drifted quietly through the pale light. But something was different now. The closet door stood open. Evelyn was certain it had been closed earlier. A cold sensation crawled slowly through her stomach. The humming stopped. Silence returned. Then came the sound of tiny footsteps running somewhere above her. Evelyn looked upward instinctively before realizing there was no third floor. The footsteps continued anyway, running, laughing softly. A child playing somewhere, impossible. Evelyn turned slowly toward the closet. Darkness waited inside it. Deep, thick, wrong. She stepped closer. Her reflection appeared faintly in the closet mirror attached to the inside wall. For one horrible second, she thought she saw another face standing beside her reflection. A little blonde girl. Evelyn gasped and spun around violently. Nobody. The nursery remained empty. When she looked back at the mirror, the child was gone. But written across the glass in small wet letters were 4 words. "Why did you leave?" Evelyn stumbled backward. Tears blurred her vision instantly. "No," she whispered. "No, no." Her knees nearly collapsed beneath her. Because the question was not coming from Clara anymore. It was coming from Camille. Or at least the part of Evelyn that still belonged to Camille. The guilt she carried every waking moment. The guilt that never stopped speaking. The accident returned to her suddenly, with unbearable clarity. The snowstorm. The headlights. Camille asleep in the back seat with her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Evelyn reaching for her ringing phone for only a second. 1 second. That was all it took. The truck sliding through the intersection. Metal screaming. Glass exploding like ice. And afterward, silence. Evelyn pressed trembling fingers against her mouth as sobs escaped her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room. The nursery light flickered once. Then the baby monitor turned on by itself. Static filled the room. And through the static came another woman's voice. Soft. Broken. Exhausted. She doesn't like being alone anymore. Evelyn slowly looked toward the old VHS player sitting beneath the bookshelf. The television beside it glowed with gray static. It had turned on by itself. The screen flickered violently before an image finally appeared. A home video. The same blonde child from the photographs laughed into the camera while running through the nursery. Behind her stood her mother, the dark-haired woman Evelyn had seen at the top of the stairs. She looked alive then. Happy. For a few seconds. Then the footage changed. The mother now sat alone in the rocking chair. Much thinner. Pale. Eyes hollow from grief. The camera shook slightly as she spoke toward whoever was filming. "Clara keeps waking up at night," she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "She cries because she thinks I'm leaving her." The footage glitched. The next scene showed the nursery darker than before. The mother stood near the crib, staring into nothing. "She says there's someone under the bed now." Another glitch. Static flooded the screen. Then the camera angle changed again. Evelyn's blood turned cold. The mother was now staring directly into the camera. Not blinking. Not moving. She doesn't like mothers who leave. The television suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed the nursery again. Then something moved beneath the crib. Evelyn heard it clearly. A soft scraping sound, like fingers dragging slowly across wood. She stepped backward instinctively. The scraping stopped. Then a little girl's voice came from underneath the crib. Mommy Evelyn froze. The voice sounded so small, so frightened. The crib shifted slightly. Something beneath it moved. And suddenly, Evelyn understood something horrifying. The child was not calling for her because it thought she was Clara's mother. It was calling her because grief had made her the same kind of woman, a mother unable to let go. A woman trapped between love and death until the house itself had begun feeding on it. The walls creaked violently around her. Wind slammed against the windows downstairs. The nursery door slowly began closing by itself. Evelyn rushed toward it immediately, but stopped halfway, because standing in the hallway beyond the narrowing doorway was Camille. Not bloody, not monstrous, just 6 years old again, small winter coat, golden hair, blue eyes filled with sadness. Evelyn's breath shattered. Camille. The child looked exactly as she remembered from the last morning before the accident. Exactly. Evelyn took a trembling step forward. Tears streamed endlessly down her face now. My baby. Camille said nothing at first. She only stood there beneath the pale moonlight while snow whispered softly outside. Then, finally very quietly, she spoke. You keep looking for me in empty houses. Evelyn collapsed to her knees. I didn't mean to leave you, she sobbed. I tried to save you, I know. Camille's voice was gentle. That hurt worse somehow. Evelyn reached toward her desperately, but Camille stepped backward slightly. You have to stop coming here, Mommy. The hallway darkened around her. Far behind Camille, shapes moved slowly through the shadows upstairs. Other women, other mothers, thin pale figures wandering endlessly through the house. Some crying softly, some rocking invisible children in their arms. Evelyn realized then what Black Pine House truly was. Not haunted, hungry. A place built from grief. A place that collected mothers who could not let go. Camille looked toward the nursery behind Evelyn. She wants you to stay. The nursery door creaked open wider by itself. Inside, the rocking chair began moving again. Back and forth, back and forth. A child laughed softly from somewhere inside the walls. Evelyn shut her eyes. For one terrible moment, she wanted nothing more than to stay there forever. To sit inside that nursery and pretend Camille still existed. To drown inside memory until reality disappeared completely. But Camille's voice broke through the darkness again. You have to let me go. Evelyn began crying harder than she had since the funeral. Not loud, dramatic crying. The exhausted grief of a mother whose heart had been buried years ago. Slowly, painfully, she stood. I don't know how, she whispered. Camille smiled sadly. You already do. The lights downstairs suddenly turned back on. Warm golden light filled the staircase below. The house groaned loudly around them. The shadows behind Camille began moving faster now. The pale mothers turning their heads toward Evelyn all at once. Watching, waiting. Camille stepped backward into darkness. I love you, Mommy. Then she vanished. The nursery door slammed shut violently. Every light in the house exploded at once. Evelyn screamed and ran. She grabbed her coat, keys, and suitcase without fully remembering how. The baby monitor shrieked with deafening static behind her as she stumbled toward the front door. The entire house seemed alive now. Floorboards creaked beneath unseen footsteps. Children laughed somewhere upstairs. Women whispered behind the walls. The rocking chair slammed violently against the nursery floor overhead. Evelyn reached the front door and tore it open. Freezing wind exploded into the hallway. Snow swirled wildly outside. As she stepped onto the porch, the baby monitor spoke one final time from inside the house. Not Clara. Not Camille. Something else. Something ancient and lonely. Mommy is staying this time. The front door slammed shut behind her. Evelyn ran through the snow without looking back. She drove until sunrise, and for the first time in 8 years, she did not stop at another empty house.